Hey, we're back. It's Wednesday. And as SP3 always says, you know what time it is? It's powered for SP3. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing well. Glad to be here with you once again, John, to talk about a little bit of professional wrestling from all over the world. We had a really good NXT last night. We've had 4 Hell in a Cells over 4 nights. I know we got plenty of questions, a lot of great, good eggs in the live chat already. So let's get to it.
Absolutely. And we'll start at the top. We'll start with the questions this week round because there's been a few coming in. So let's start with Honest Beyond Reasonable. Always like this name. Bobby versus Lesnar won't be that good, I feel. It looks good on paper, but Bobby is a poor man's version of Brock when it comes to MMA. Only makes sense if Lesnar smashes him. Okay. Well, if that's the case, I wouldn't bring Lesnar back in if that's what they're planning to do. But SP3, any comments to this?
What does Bobby being a poor man's version of Brock in MMA have to do with a wrestling match? I'm just like very confused. Like I was willing to listen to this take, even though I disagreed with it right off the bat, but I didn't understand referring to MMA when we're talking about professional wrestling. Professional wrestling and MMA are two different sides of the spectrum. I think this comment would have been a lot more relatable and a lot more
We
agreeable
had plenty of that earlier, I tell you.
on Big Fight Weekly, but we're here to talk about professional wrestling. And Bobby Lashley has been on the run of his career. He's finally at a level where it's not Brock Lesnar coming down to him. He's the WWE champion. They can feud over the WWE title, the last title that Brock Lesnar had, and I think they would have a really, really good matchup. Like, Brock does well when he's against a guy who can match him, hard hitting style.
Yeah,
Go
he
one on
likes the
one with him.
physicality, doesn't he?
Exactly. Drew and him went physical, for 3 minutes or so at WrestleMania 36. But in the past, he's had good matches with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 31. He's had good matches with The Undertaker throughout his career. So I think him and Bobby would have a really great matchup. And I feel that it would be a great, a double main event to go along with Roman and John Cena, as we talked about before. That's the planned main event for SummerSlam. I think this would be another great match to add to that card.
Yeah, absolutely. Followed up by, of course, Brett Thomas, who says, makes more sense to have a draw like Logan Paul versus Brock. Lashley buy rates in MMA highest 44K. That's a joke. Hager, not much better either. Paul versus KSI, 1.6 million. WWE could go back to pay-per-view again. I don't think they're going to go back to pay-per-view, Brett. I mean, they've signed off on like a freaking £1 billion deal here with like freaking Peacock. They're not in the pay-per-view game. And yeah, you can't, like, I'll start this. You can't, again, this is another MMA kind of thing or a boxing thing. We're in different worlds here, Brett. We are in completely different worlds. And yes, you might get it for a one-off, but there's no longevity in what you're saying, because it'll be a one-off pay-per-view, and then what do you do next? Logan Paul's gone again. So it's like, this is a weekly thing. This is the thing with wrestling. So yeah, I kind of feel like that point is a very it's not going to work. Let's put it that way. What about USB3? Anything to add to this?
I just don't understand why Brett doesn't let Logan Paul stay in boxing. He's been successful in boxing. Just stick to boxing. Why do you keep trying to make him into wrestling? Like, that's going to solve anything. It's just like, please, like, oh man, yes.
Amen to Rachel. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, we need help. Where we're going through this every week. I tell you, I don't think we'll ever get out of it. But yeah, El Sicano mentioning Brett Thomas. How's the curtain pole? Yeah, we had a Hell in a Cell bloody preview. And what other Hell in a Cell preview do you get mention of a curtain pole, police, and the DIY stuff? Only on us. But yeah, all good, I believe. Mark Lloyd, watch China Doc. So sad, man. China was a real innovator of the women's wrestling, in the sense John said about earlier on Big Fight Weekly. you stop noticing it was a woman versus a man in the ring as she just fit in. Yeah, I mean, that's what I made that comment earlier, and I kind of mean that, because when I was young, a young fan, I never saw it as a woman versus a male, a man in the ring every time. It kind of just felt as into one. She was just part of the roster, for me. Like, I didn't kind of see it that way. People will argue whether she was a great worker or not, but it's kind of here or there, because I think in terms of her marketability and stuff like that, she was a massive part of DX. She fit that package with Hunter and Shawn at the time. She was like the last missing piece. And yeah, as you say, Mark, very, very sad. I haven't seen the whole documentary yet, so I can't give too much to that, but I know one man who has, and that is my co-host here, SP3, who again done an incredible review, but I have not seen the full Vice episode, so I can't give comment. SP3, what was your your main takeaway from the documentary, without giving too much away, because we want people to get over to True Hill Heat and check it out for themselves. But a few brief things then, SP3, for China here.
She was, a woman that is truly probably one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time, as far as when it comes to like being a star and being over. Like, you had guys like Jim Ross, Billy Gunn saying she was as over as Stone Cold Steve Austin at the height of the Austin era. And as we've said before, Austin's the biggest professional wrestler. No one hit the peak that Austin hit, and I don't think any women's wrestler has ever hit the peak that China hit. She was a very much, like Mark said, an innovator, a pioneer of just women in wrestling, not just women's wrestling, but women in wrestling, because she was able to cross over and compete with the men. And that's why, when you got to that level, being able to just wrestle with the women again, it felt like a step backwards for her, as she says in the documentary. And, like we said in our review, you can check it out right now on the True Hill Heat YouTube channel with myself and Chrissy Love. She was let down by so many people, even to her dying day. So, definitely check out, if you're able to check it out. I know it's available on a few sites, Daily Motion, as well as a couple of like wrestling streaming sites. But if you, don't want to take the time to watch it, if it's too hard hitting for you to just watch and see how sad it is, check out our review, because we kind of go in depth, step by step on the documentary, and then give our thoughts throughout, as well as at the end we give the MVP, LVP. And I just saw we got a great review comment from China's ex-boyfriend, who was a part of the documentary, and said that we did an outstanding job. So we got a vote of approval from someone that was involved in the documentary. So go check it out. I think you muted yourself again, John.
Kudos to you, I was going to say, my friend. That's fantastic to get that kind of feedback. I mean, wow, to get that from him. So there you go. That's the reach that True Hill Heat have there, people. So don't forget to go and check that out on True Hill Heat now. We got Chris from Big Fight Weekly. Great having you on Big Fight Weekly, John. Hope you and SB3 have a great show. Invasion Angle is back. Yes, the invasion continues, I'm sure, as we go on. And a couple of people saying hello to Mike, to Chris there. Also, we had some crazy chat earlier, SP3, on the film Flash Gordon. I mean, what else did you talk about in MMA and boxing? You bring up Flash Gordon, yeah. Somebody's name was apparently something to do with Flash Gordon. So Rachel saying, I loved the Flash Gordon talk earlier. Whatever happened to that guy? I saw him in the film Ted. Yeah, there was a documentary about him. I think you can find it on Amazon. I forgot the guy's name, but it's quite a fascinating watch when you see that guy, because at one time he was like the biggest thing, Mr. Hollywood, and then he ended up in the sort of Comic-Con land of era, But any memory? Are you a fan of Flash Gordon at all there, SP3?
Not too much, but I did see the film Ted, and that was one of the best parts of that movie for sure. A very funny movie there, Ted. So I did like that.
Yeah, it was an epic film. And Carnage Pain at Mark Lloyd. Did you find Julie Hart yet? I mean, this is an ongoing saga as well. I saw him on one of your shows. I don't know which one it was, but again, it was still going on. This search.
He wants to know if Julie Hart has the OnlyFans. Like, this is where it got a little provocative, in my opinion. Yeah, he asked if Julie Hart had an OnlyFans. That's what
Right.
I was like, this whole thing has gone out of control. It's gone out of control.
Well, he's hoping she does more in documentaries coming up. Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see about it. Also, he had wonder why she still keeps Hart as surname. I have no idea, but you should be doing your research, Mark. You know, do the research to this. Carnage Pain. Anyone see Mick on Stone Cold Podcast? It was so refreshing. Mick calls out everything wrong with pro wrestling today, especially them ridiculous looking belts WWE has with huge logo on it. Yeah, I did see the most of it. Yes, I thought it was very good. Nothing more than you'd expect from Steve Austin and Mick Foley. Mick Foley, one of the nicest human beings on the planet, I believe, not just wrestling, but just overall nice guy. But it was great because they was talking about the whole A&E documentary in it. So they were like touching on it. Did you see the SP3 at all?
I wasn't able to watch that. There's a lot of wrestling for me to go through.
There's a lot to get through.
I've been on a 90s film streak for the last week, so I haven't found the time to watch this yet, but I will for sure, since I got the vote of approval from Carnage Pain, who is a good egg.
There you go, and here we go. Rambling Rambo, he's back, and of course, I can't see. Yeah, of course, there is mention of Tony. I thought we didn't. Then AEW chucks 40 million on new game. Unlike UFC that has slowed it down for realism, like sport, AEW's can be sped up as these punks do video game matches instead. Tony have his photo shoot on cover. I don't know what to say to that, really. SP3, where can you go from that? Rachel Carnell says what photo shoot? I'm with you. What photo shoot is he?
The photo shoot that Tony Khan did for his Forbes article that we talked about last week.
Oh, okay.
He literally thinks that it was a photo shoot that Tony Khan probably booked for himself when Forbes took pictures of him for the article. And how do you know? Like, how do you? It's like this is the thing we were talking about the last couple of weeks. Rambo, I want you to talk about the things you do know and you do watch. Stop talking about things you don't know and you're literally getting secondhand information. Like, sheesh. Yes, you can put 40 mil into the game. I want that over probably what WWE put almost as much, and that video game was crap. So I want them to
you have to
slow it down.
Yeah, 40 million, you might think it's a lot. It's not a lot in the video game world. Like, the video game world is huge. Like, I would expect them to be doing that. That's one of the first things I'd be doing because WWE's is so bad. So why not capitalize where, you've got these guys like Kenny Omega who likes games, play the games, get these guys more involved and make a damn video game. I don't see what the issue is there. Well, I'm crying out for a decent wrestling video game personally. Carnage Pain also just bought Fozzy tickets for December in UK. Can't wait. Very good. Yes, Stu Palmer actually is going as well. I know that much. He messaged me earlier. Rachel Carnell. I didn't know they were coming over. Carnage Pain. I'll check that out. There you go. Some people very interested where it is, and it's actually in Carlisle, by the way, for anybody that does want to know. And Mark Lloyd adding, what do you think of to group buy on Fozzy, Powered 4 gang? Yeah, let's see that one. Carnage Pain replies, are you taking Julie on a date?
Carnage Pain is just poking and prodding.
He knows.
Heart thing.
Yeah, he knows where that is. And Rachel also saying, oh yeah, John Scott, we want Bret Hart impression, please. Yeah, I mentioned this. However, it's going to come next week. It will come next week because I tell you, the thing with Bret, he is a very difficult person to impersonate. He's hard, and I have to be sitting in front of him for a few hours before I can get it. But I will get it, and I will bring it to you next week on that. And Chris just rubbing salt into my wound here. Yeah, John, I want to get the Bret Hart impersonation done. Yeah, thank you very much. It will come next week. Don't worry. Next week we'll be there. Rachel saying boo. But no, you've got to build these things up like a pay-per-view. You've got to do it. And someone mentioning how good Chris on Big Fight Weekly did a Sean Connery impersonation earlier, which was very good. I will add that was very good. Lewis Young just saying hi. So there you go. There's the questions in, and Carnage Pain finishing up with John Scott 2 today, SP3 X100 in one day. Yeah, that's about right. I'm thinking it's a lot that I'm doing 2 shows, but SP3 is probably doing about 100. You're right. He's never off this thing. He's glued to the screen. Yeah, he's glued on. Okay, let's go and start at the top. WWE NXT recap then. Yeah, another good show, I think, SP3.
Yes, I agree. WWE NXT is on a streak. The last 2 weeks have been very good television. My only nitpicks for the show was I felt like they were overdoing this whole pull apart brawl thing. Like, I understand, chaos. You got to have chaos for Samoa Joe to settle, but it just felt like a little bit too much because you should have had things a little bit more settled with Samoa Joe's second week, in my opinion. But and also I felt like there wasn't enough Joe. I did like the teases of him and Cross and him and Pete Dunne, but I went to more Samoa Joe in my life after last week was so electric with him. But other than that, I thought this show was really, really another strong episode, starting off the show with Adam Cole's open challenge, basically, and Carmelo Hayes having a little callback to the Ruthless Aggression line with John Cena and Kurt Angle. And I thought their match was a lot of fun. Like, that was a great start to the show. Carmelo Hayes looking great once again. He just has a certain flair to him and a certain charisma that, he doesn't need to talk too much, but he has it all in the ring, and he oozes that, through his whole persona within the ring and how he works. And Adam Cole getting a win is something that I've been preaching for a while. I don't understand how this guy got a shot at the last takeover without winning a match in 2021, but he's gotten 2 title shots in this year, and that's his first victory in months. So I'm happy he did get that win, and it was a really good matchup. I also really enjoyed the main event with Kyle O'Reilly and Kushida. I thought those 2 guys just worked so well together. It was a technical wrestling clinic. The way they just paced it, it had a more deliberate pace to it, but everything was so smooth. They had great transitions from submission to submission, and they just showed the chemistry that we were talking about last week when after they teased the matchup for this week, and we knew they would deliver an excellent main event, and that's exactly what they did. And I really enjoyed the debut of the Diamond Mine. I would have liked it more if they didn't tease that it was coming on this week, that they just would have kept saying, coming soon, and then have this surprise debut, because I think it would have been a little bit more effective. But I liked them jumping Kushida. It wasn't anything mind-blowing. It was kind of paint by the numbers, but the reveal of Roddy Strong being like the main event guy in this group, I thought was awesome, because I was very scared for Roddy Strong coming out of Undisputed Era. I didn't have a whole lot of faith in NXT to keep him along and keep him in a prominent position. But him being in a new stable, especially with Malcolm Bivens as the manager, because Roddy Strong is awesome. He's incredible in the ring, but he's never been the strongest promo. So he needs another strong promo guy around him, whether it's been Adam Cole in the past or, in ROH, he was managed by Truth Martini. He was in a stable with Austin Aries, which are 2 great promo guys if you've never heard them before. And him being with Malcolm Bivens just works. And I've been pleading with NXT to give Malcolm Bivens something to do, something worthwhile, and this feels like it's it. Him along with Tyler Russ being in the Diamond Mine group, as well as Hideki Suzuki. I've been wondering what they were going to do with Hideki Suzuki since signing him. It just feels like a very well thought out faction that they put together here. Another nitpick that I did have is that NXT seems to have too many heel stables, but the other highlight of the show for me was the tag team match with The Way versus Pete Dunne and Oney Lorcan, and the fact that they are teasing The Way being a babyface. I'm pleading for that because this match and the promo before it proved that babyface Johnny Gargano is the best Johnny Gargano. And I like the fact that, you have Karrion Kross, who's kind of putting the carrot in front of Samoa Joe's face saying, "Oh, you can't touch me unless you're provoked." And Pete Dunne's doing the stare down with him. Adam Cole's upset for getting choked out by Samoa Joe. I like the juxtaposition of Johnny Gargano saying, "Samoa Joe's here. I'm going to follow the rules. I'm a law abiding citizen. I'm going to drop the mic down. I'm not going to get into any brawls. I don't want to draw Joe's ire." I like that little change in him because, he, even if he's staying as, the chicken heel, I like that. I like that he's different from everybody else. Different is better a lot of times, and that's what I really much enjoy. Johnny Gargano was very much one of the MVPs of the night, but so was Austin Theory. I think that he hilariously sold the snapping of his fingers by Pete Dunne during the promo segment, and that bled in nicely into their matchup. And, his selling as well as his babyface comeback was very much enjoyable. So we had, 3 quality matches on the night. Everything else was kind of fit in well. Frankie Monet having another squash victory worked, even though I'm really wanting her to have a little bit more. She's been around for 3 months now, and she's only had 2 matches. She doesn't have a feud. She kind of has a story going with Aaliyah and Jessie Kamea of the Robert Stone brand, but that kind of feels below of what I would think you would do with a Frankie Monet, aka Taya Valkyrie. I like the team of Zoe Stark and Io Shirai, and I like the fact Io says, "I respect you, but I don't like you," so it kind of fits her character still well. But I will say the whole tag team, set up for the 3-way for next week with Io Shirai and Zoe Stark versus Raquel Gonzalez, Dakota Kai versus Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon. It felt kind of forced to kind of make it seem like their tag team division is stacked when it's really not. And it's like Zoe and Io Shirai just got together and they don't feel like a tag team at all. Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, yes, they do. They do feel like tag teams because they've been together for a couple of months, but it felt kind of forced to kind of be like, "Oh, we have a stacked tag team division," when you really don't, when one of the tag teams has the women's champion in it. And I thought that Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart's promo was god awful. And I just want them to keep the mic away from Ember Moon. 3 years ago, for anyone that's followed me on True Hill Heat or want to go back in the archives, I was one of the biggest Ember Moon haters not because she wasn't talented in the ring. She's always been great in the ring. It's just I don't think her promos are good, and I don't think it fits with the character that they kind of tried to form with Ember Moon. I thought she was very whiny, very complaining, and her being obnoxious on the mic just kind of was like, "Oh, now I remember why I didn't like you before." So I don't want them to do that, and I don't want that rubbing off on Shotzi Blackheart, who I think can be good on the mic. So I just hope that they keep the mic away from them. Just let them be baby faces, because that was not good, and that was probably my biggest problem with the show. But other than that, like I said, it was another very good episode, an 8 out of 10 in my opinion for NXT this week.
High praise, high praise. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. But I have been enjoying it much more since the days have changed. I just like I keep harping on about, they seem more bothered about what they're doing as opposed to anyone else, and it just makes for an all-round better product. Rachel just mentioning Truth Martini there that you mentioned to WWE. Unfortunately not, Rachel, I feel, but I don't know, it's B3.
No, I was mentioning that Roddy was with Truth Martini in Ring of Honor, and they made a very good, team together. But Truth Martini's been away from professional wrestling for a number of years now, so I don't see him coming back, and I definitely don't see him in WWE. But Truth Martini had so much talent. He was like
he was one of the only few managers when they still called them managers, as far as I can recall, because
I would say Truth Martini and Larry Sweeney are like the two best managers that not a lot of people ever got to see. Like they never hit the mainstream, but they were so good in their roles.
And more news here of WWE potentially splitting up Cross and Scarlett. Like, why on earth would they do this, SP3? But tell me, what is the thinking here?
So basically, what was reported? Fightful Select reported that Karrion Kross and Bronson Reed were wrestling a dark match before Friday night's SmackDown, and then they were also backstage at Hell in a Cell. Then I guess it went well, so they decided to put both, the NXT champion and North American champion on main event this week before the Raw taping on Monday, and Karrion Kross got a victory over Shelton Benjamin, but conspicuous by her absence was Scarlett Bordeaux. And then Fightful Select later reported that Scarlett was having her own separate dark match on Friday before SmackDown this week. So they are potentially, trying to basically test the waters of Karrion Kross on his own and then Scarlett Bordeaux on her own. So this can be a foreshadowing. Sometimes, WWE doesn't like these partnerships coming up to the main roster. We saw it before with Enzo and Cass and Carmella being separated when they came to the main roster. So it looks like we may potentially be seeing this again with Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux, which I think is a mistake. I've seen both of them separate, and I think that the package is better than the separate parts. Karrion Kross can work on his own. He was an intimidator on his own as Killer Kross, and he did a lot of great things, whether it was in Impact Wrestling, Lucha Underground, MLW, or the independent scene. Scarlett Bordeaux plays this very provocative kind of diva-esque character that was very well done in Impact Wrestling when she was on her own, as well as on the independent. So I'm not saying that they can't get success on their own. We've seen them together in NXT, and it's probably the best that Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux have ever been, presented. And it takes away from the entrance, and the entrance is one of the best parts of Karrion Kross. It's Scarlett Bordeaux lip singing that entrance theme. So I don't understand the thinking, but this is WWE, this is Vince McMahon, so it is what it is. I just think that it would be a huge mistake on their part.
Massive mistake, in my opinion, a huge mistake if they go down that road. The thing is, I can't quite work out with WWE is they treat NXT as if nobody watches it on like SmackDown and Raw. But dude, you're throwing it out on telly, like we can see it all. And so the hardcore fans, like, poor us kind of thing, we are watching the whole thing, and like they're kind of doing like an arc story from NXT. But then they turn up on the main roster like we're supposed to pretend we've never seen any of that stuff. And it's like they reintroduce them again. And you'll hear it in the play-by-play. They kind of give all the same background that we'd heard weeks and weeks ago, on like NXT, years ago or whatever, when they first turned up. So I think they've got to get out of this mindset that like nobody is watching NXT. Nobody knows who Kross is and Bordeaux. You know what I mean? Like, come on, they are a great package. They've been with each other for this time. Like, why on earth would you do this now? But maybe they were just testing the waters. Who knows? I'm hopeful that that's not going to be the case, because as you rightly say, that will really dampen, especially the entrance, quite frankly, which is one of the key parts of the whole thing, the whole success. That's what got them over at the very initial beginning before we even saw him in the ring. So let's get this on. On,
I totally agree with you, because it just makes no sense. I think that they are projecting, though, because the officials and Vince McMahon don't watch NXT, so they think we don't watch NXT, and because
it's like Rambo.
Yes, exactly. It's like Rambo. He thinks because he hears something from Jim Cornette, it has to be gospel. So he repeats it in our live chat excessively and repeats and repeats.
This is the same discussions that Triple H is having with Vince is what we're having here with Rambo. It's the same thing.
Please don't project Rambo or WWE. And I just, I totally agree with your statement. Like, NXT's on TV. So that was my main question when they said they were doing a dark match, because one, dark matches is supposed to be, if you are on NXT and you're having a dark match, in the past, it was to see how a main roster audience responds to you. You're doing a goddamn dark match in an empty arena for only your officials when you have tapes upon tapes of NXT to look at to see how Bronson Reed and Karrion Kross perform. So it made zero sense that they did a dark match before SmackDown this week with Karrion Kross and Bronson Reed. It's like they're the NXT champion and the North American champion. I thought that was what NXT was for you to have tape to see, hey, this guy has talent. Let's bring him up to the main roster. Not to bring him up to the main roster to have a dark match in front of 5 or 6 people because you want them to figure out what type of storylines can we do with them. And then to have their main roster debut be on main event.
Jeez.
I don't understand this at all.
No, it makes no sense. And as you rightly saying, I didn't think about the fact there's no fans. So it's not even like they can gauge a reaction on a different show. There's not even any point of that. So what on earth, why they have all that archive? Obviously, they clearly haven't subscribed to Peacock or the network. You know, Vince is not having his own thing. He's not going to pay a dime towards his own product. So speaking of lots of too much of something here, how about 4 Hell in a Cell matches in 4 nights? What did we make of Hell in a Cell in general? I heard a lot of bad rap about this show. I'll be honest with you, I kind of fell out of love when I heard that the Rey Mysterio Roman match was taking place on SmackDown, just because I think, well, you've devalued the pay-per-view even more. It's not like it could have been any match, but like the fact it was that match, probably the best match I was looking forward to. It was like, okay, you're putting it on free TV. You've had 1 day to promote it, not even like a week. 1 day before they even put it on telly. It's like, I don't know how much of a boost the ratings got, but was it worth it? I have no idea. Like for 1 day to promote that, it seemed ridiculous. But the only thing with me with these Hell in a Cells, the more of them you have, the less impact it has on all 4 of the matches. And quite frankly, like they were all good. They weren't terrible. They all had something. But again, they used so much gimmicks in the Hell in a Cell now. It's like even the structure, what it once was, has completely gone. The idea that Hell in a Cell used to knock years off your career and it used to be a real impactful thing, that's just gone. This is like a toy to sell now. So overall, unfortunately, the results were very predictable. I found like there was nothing that surprised me out of it, so it wasn't even that to take away. And yeah, it just felt like they were going through the motions. It almost feels like SP3, to go one step further, that WWE are counting down the days until they can get back out to a live crowd, because they just seem like they're going through the motions at this point. Like they are so internally just done with no fans that the idea of having fans is just, no, we'll just give them anything. We'll just give them the same type of matches, the same type of feuds that we've had now for a while. And that'll do. I mean, Kevin Owens and Sammy had another match, which I wasn't opposed to because they always have great matches, but I'm like, bloody hell, again? Like, you know, it's a lot of the same. What did you take away from it, my friend?
For Hell in a Cell itself, the pay-per-view, I thought that it was once again a very quality as far as wrestling goes. I think all the performers worked well. There wasn't a bad match on the card other than Alexa Bliss playing Voodoo Child with Nia Jax, Reginald, and Shayna Baszler. And Shayna Baszler having to sell Alexa stare like, oh my God, I can't joint manipulate you because
we're gonna have to get some.
Oh my God! And I think Chris G.
It worked on Randy.
Chris G said it best, that she made and Nia Jax do the In Sync "It's Gonna Be Me" video. It's gonna be me. So that was very bad. That took me out.
What a throwback.
That took me out of the show almost, but I thought the opener with Bianca Belair and Bayley was another great women's Hell in a Cell matchup. I think that Bayley is Miss Hell in a Cell because she's hit twice as far as, the match of the night at the 2020 Hell in a Cell and a match of the year candidate for WWE against Sasha Banks last year. And I thought that she was, great and innovative in the way that she, was doing offense against Bianca Belair, using the hair, the kendo stick throwback. I thought that was the callback to last year when she taped up the kendo sticks this time beforehand. I thought that was great. Her talking trash to Michael Cole was awesome. But I felt like this was a excellent no disqualification match that just had a red cell around it, that it kind of diminished the fact that this was Hell in a Cell. I thought the finish was great. I thought Bianca Belair worked well. I love the way that they protect her hair and how her hair is like a lethal weapon in WWE. So it was a match of the night, but I wouldn't say that it's going to be in the pantheon of the greatest Hell in a Cell matches I ever seen. And I think that is what like the overwhelming feeling of 4 Hell in a Cells in 4 nights is that we've really gone away from the purpose of Hell in a Cell. I just did an article for Sportskeeda Wrestling for the 6 greatest Hell in a Cell matches of all time before the pay-per-view. And, in recent years, I actually had a couple that I had to include. Like I was supposed to make it 5 greatest and I had to make it 6 greatest to put Bayley and Sasha in that because I felt like it deserved to be, mentioned in the greatest Hell in a Cell matches. New Day and the Usos was another great one that was in my top 6. But other than those, really, the Hell in a Cell has completely lost the value. Like Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio had a 3-week storyline, a 3-week feud that already went into Hell in a Cell on the 3rd week. Like, and I had people arguing with me that it warrants the Hell in a Cell because a father's love for his son is worthwhile. I had people talking about losing their father and understanding that a father's love means that you have to have a Hell in a Cell match. I thought that was preposterous. It's ridiculous that people are comparing real life tragedies of losing your father to the nonsense that we saw. Especially Go ahead.
I was going to say, go back to SummerSlam. Go back to Dominic custody.
I was like Dominic last year got beaten like a government mule by Seth Rollins with 31 kendo stick shots. He got mauled by Brock Lesnar 2 years ago when he wasn't a trained wrestler. A couple of months ago, he got jumped 2-on-1 and injured in his opportunity to win the tag team titles by the Dirty Dogs. All of those are more reasons for Hell in a Cell match than Roman Reigns just beating him up a little bit. Because mind you, Roman didn't throw him out of the ring and powerbomb him, which was the worst thing that Roman did to him, until after Rey Mysterio challenged him to Hell in a Cell. So it's like you can't even say that, it's because he threw him. If someone threw my child like that, I would challenge him to Hell in a Cell. No, that happened after he challenged him. Don't try to revisionist history me, because I know how these things went out. I reviewed the show for Sportskeeda Wrestling every single week, so I have to take my notes. So he challenged him before that even happened. So it's ridiculous for people to even say that's the reason why you have to have a Hell in a Cell. No, it was a good matchup. I thought it was a lot of fun seeing Roman, yeet Rey Mysterio into the Hell in a Cell cage. And I thought they worked well together. I thought they did a good job of, giving Rey Mysterio enough offense for some people to probably believe that he could beat Roman Reigns. I wasn't one of those people, so to each his own, but I thought it was a good matchup and a good way to close the show. Like I said, Bianca and Bayley had the best Hell in a Cell over that time span. I thought Xavier Woods and Bobby Lashley on Monday Night Raw, that was another good Hell in a Cell match. And I very much like the angle with, beating up Xavier in front of Kofi while Kofi watched and was trying to get into the cell. And I thought Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley were well on their way to having a great Hell in a Cell match that used the structure. It was physical. It was hard hitting. It was intense. And then we had an interference distraction roll up finish in a freaking Hell in a Cell match. Like I've said multiple times on this show and True Hill Heat, Wrestling Daily, every other show I do, WWE was on a hot streak, especially inside the Thunderdome from SummerSlam all the way up until Hell in a Cell. They over-delivered. Although their creative has been bad on Monday Night Raw and building up pay-per-views, outside of Roman Reigns' storyline on SmackDown, it's been repetitive. And even this card was very much repetitive because we had a rematch from WrestleMania 36 in Charlotte versus Rhea, a rematch from WrestleMania Backlash in Bayley and Bianca. We had a rematch of WrestleMania and a rematch of WrestleMania Backlash with Lashley and Drew. We had a rematch of WrestleMania 37 with Zayn and Owens. Like, the list goes on and on with this entire card being rematch after rematch after rematch. But always WWE superstars have seemed to over deliver and overcome the booking and creative to have good performances. And like I said, 5 out of the 6 matches on this card delivered quality. But the last 2 finishes was so deflating. To have a distraction roll-up finish in the Hell in a Cell, and that's your ending of the show, that just felt like I wasn't on the review on the True Hill Heat YouTube channel. Check out our Hell in a Cell review. But the guys ripped it apart because the ending, how you finish it. We talked about it with AEW Revolution and AEW Blood and Guts, that no matter how good the wrestling is, sometimes all people are going to remember is the finish. And to have that as your finish to a Hell in a Cell match, and after you've protected Bobby Lashley the way you have, he could have beat Drew McIntyre like with a spear. Like, I don't like, even the distraction, I'm okay with if you're trying to protect Drew McIntyre. But a roll-up? A freaking roll-up? That's the first time I ever seen a roll-up finish in a Hell in a Cell, and I was disgusted by it. Absolutely disgusted with that's the way that Drew McIntyre has his last shot, his last match with Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. That is just disappointing. But the only finish that was worse than that had to be Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley. These 2 ladies worked their butts off and were delivering. They have just great chemistry together. They just mesh so well. Their styles work together, and they were on their way to having another entertaining matchup. And then Rhea hit her with the plastic part of the goddamn announce table, and that's a DQ finish. You know how many times we see people go into that plastic part? People ram each other's heads into that plastic part, but because she lifted it off and hit her with it, that's a disqualification. Oh my God. I was just like, no, they didn't. No, so you're telling me that when someone bashes their head into it, it's not a DQ, but if you take that and bash it into their head, that is a DQ. So you're telling me that when someone used brass knuckles, that they can claim that the person headbutted the brass knuckles and it's not a DQ. It's not a DQ. They headbutted the brass knuckles. It went the other way. I didn't hit them with the brass knuckles. They headbutted my hand. So that is a DQ. It just was like, oh my God, so done. And like, I thought that NXT takeover, like I said last week, was one of the weaker takeovers in recent memory, but that honestly eclipsed what we saw on Sunday. We had good wrestling, but just very bad finishes to those final 2 matches. And whatever the hell Alexa versus Shayna was, that really put my score down. That would have been like another 8 out of 10 quality main roster pay-per-view. I said 7.5 in the comments on the roundtable, but after reliving it with you guys just now, I'm going to have to drop it on another point and say 6.5, 6 out of 10 type of show, which is still above the average because the wrestling was so good. Seth Rollins and Cesaro was a very good matchup that I didn't mention here, but and Zayn and Owens, I feel like they can fight a million times and they always seem to do something different. And this was very physical. You had Zayn bleeding from the mouth. You had the good selling of Kevin Owens acting like the Nigerian nail was COVID-19. So, you know, it was cool. It was cool moments, cool, very good wrestling. But man, oh man, those final 2 finishes, especially Charlotte versus Rhea, really let me down on the entire show.
Yeah, you can't put it any more than that. I mean, it was, for me, I just watched it. I didn't expect much, and I didn't get much either by the end of it. It was just, I don't know, it was just something missing. But I just hate the stakes that are here. This is not Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell, and maybe it's because I was, watching it in a different era, but to get to a Hell in a Cell match meant you had, it was like almost the last and final option. This is what I need to do. And it was also a thing about nobody getting in there. It was one of the big bloody things. It's the fact there's a roof on the top of the damn thing. But even that don't seem to matter anymore. But yeah, everything of that has totally gone. And now it's just become a yearly custom that when we get to this point of it's like a seasonal thing, we have to bring out Hell in a Cell, which is unfortunate because that match, I don't think it'll ever get back what it once had. You know, I really don't. I think it's completely gone now. Guys, we're going to take a very short break. Just going to play a little clip here from 1PW's first ever event in the UK, which was back in 2005. So hope you guys like what's coming up. And don't forget to check it out on Powered4s.tv.
Just the impact. All you need. Aries lands on his feet, and Williams just flings him upside down into the buckle.
There you go, the incredible 1PW there, going way back, the cruel twist of fate. Go and check that out now on Powered4s.tv. And don't forget, there's only one code you need to use. That's use the code SP3 on the sign up, 50% off first month when you get it. And we've got loads of stuff coming in. Don't forget, Chicagoland Championship Wrestling is very nearly here. And this weekend taking place is the full TNT Extreme Wrestling, 3 events going on over the weekend. So we're really looking forward to that SP3, as you can imagine on our side. Just a couple of comments here, just to quickly go through. Rachel just saying that it was awful with Bliss. Yes, totally agree. Brett Thomas, I don't know where this has come from, but Triple H happy at SummerSlam on ring. What the hell? Coded message, I'm sure, from Brett in all that. And Carnage Payne says Bliss charges $600 for cameo for a 16-second. I read this, I saw it as well on Twitter. I couldn't believe it. I mean, that is, and she's not the only one. They're all doing that sort of price. I mean, like, it's beyond me where all this money is going, because yes, you have to pay a slight fee back to cameo, but blimey, not enough for that to be able. I mean, I wonder how much they are actually getting themselves, SB3. I mean, 16 seconds, flipping hell. Yeah, anyway, Carnage Payne saying rip off. There you go. Yeah, well, 600, yeah, you might as well go and meet them, to be honest with you, like an Axis or something. I mean, don't be getting a cameo for 16 seconds for that, I can assure you. Goodness knows what that works, that per second that you are paying for. But yeah, I wonder how many people have gone, oh, can you do that black gooey stuff that comes out your eyes and look at me, you know, like how many? It seems to be, oh, for God's sake.
Wish me happy birthday.
But, yeah. Yeah, we had enough of this with The Undertaker a couple of years back, didn't we, when he came out of character, and there were some real funny ones in amongst that. Even I don't think even he was 600 quid. $600. So, you know, this is what we're talking about in comparisons here. That's it. That is a huge, staggering amount of money. Next up, we've got, of course, the latest. We mentioned this earlier on Brock Lesnar's return. This is all the buzz at the moment. Last couple of weeks, it's all been about John Cena, but finally, the thinking Brock Lesnar. Now, SP3, for those people that are maybe not familiar with Brock and where he's been, I mean, reports were last year at WrestleMania, he pretty much had enough of it all. He kind of wanted to get out of Dodge as quick as he could with the whole COVID thing. I think he wanted his match shot a lot earlier as well, because, you know, he just wanted to get home back in his fortress, which is probably where he's been for the last year and a half, knowing Brock. He, like I said, he's the best guy for isolation because he's been doing it most of his life. I'm pretty sure he's fine. But all of a sudden, WWE, you know, they've got the itch to bring him back. They know that the ratings haven't been great. Is this just sort of like, we got to get Brock back? He's the go-to guy now. They've run out of Goldberg matches, so like we have to basically, because the thing with Brock is he ain't cheap. We know this. He's a business guy, so obviously they must feel the real urge here to go all out, not only John Cena, but to bring Brock in. You know, it's quite a statement, I feel, because I felt SP3 like they'd maybe sort of given up with Brock at this point and kind of trying to put their eggs in one basket with other guys. But they always seem to go back to these familiar people. The thing I'm inquisitive about to ask you, SP3, on this is if he does come back, and of course it is the match with Lashley, as we alluded to earlier, what is the best possible outcome here? Is it just let's put Bobby over as much as we can, or are they going to do WWE and just back with Lesnar again, you know, until next year's WrestleMania, and you know, forget Bobby?
I mean, I would think that, you know, with the return of fans, they want to make every pay-per-view big time, and having Brock Lesnar on, you know, the Raw side, it will not make it necessary to have Roman Reigns on every pay-per-view. Because as you see, you know, Roman Reigns not being on this last pay-per-view made me rate it lower than a lot of other pay-per-views.
Yeah.
But the report is saying, Dave Meltzer, you know, has addressed it, as well as Fightful Select. They reported that Lesnar was in talks with WWE for a return to action, and WWE hoped to use him soon. However, sources close to Lesnar later told Fightful that they don't believe there's been any real content or movement for Lesnar to return to WWE, despite WWE officials hoping to bring him back. Dave Meltzer then reported that there's nothing with Lesnar and WWE right now as of Monday. However, Meltzer did suppose that WWE could always throw money at him in order to bring him back. Brock Lesnar, as you know, we've said, has not been seen since WrestleMania 36, and this is the longest period that Lesnar has gone, you know, not being in WWE since his return all the way back in 2012. So it's going to be very interesting on when they decide to bring him back and how they use him. There's also been reports in the past that they don't want to bring him back into the fold until they're ready to do a Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns feud. But I think that SummerSlam, they want all hands on deck. They want to make this year's WrestleMania. They're bringing John Cena back into the fold. Edge is returning for the first time versus WrestleMania, as well as Bray Wyatt, Sasha Banks. So, you know, all those names are good to bring back in the fold, especially Cena being in the main event against Roman Reigns, which is a fresh matchup. But I really feel they need that secondary matchup to kind of suit in, especially for the WWE Championship, as there's nobody really on the Raw side that kind of jumps out as a big potential matchup. I mean, they could do The Fiend versus Bobby Lashley, but does anybody want to see The Fiend versus Bobby Lashley? I'm not one of them. I mean, I love me some Bray Wyatt. I think he's very creative. I think he's a great performer, but The Fiend as a character has not resulted in the best matches with almost anyone except for maybe like Kevin Owens and Daniel Bryan. Outside of that, all his matches have been very poor or disappointing. So I don't want to see what he could do with Bobby Lashley, especially because of how they've built up Bobby Lashley so strong, and The Fiend, the way his character is, I don't think that would work. So bringing in Brock Lesnar is a money matchup. It's a matchup that a lot of people have wanted to see, and it's a matchup that Bobby Lashley has wanted. And it also, you know, circles into, you know, the result would circle into Survivor Series in November. They want to make that big. The rumored location for that is in Brooklyn. And, you know, they're talking about bringing The Rock in, but that's not guaranteed. But giving me a matchup of Roman Reigns, the Universal Champion, versus the WWE Champion, Brock Lesnar, with Paul Heyman in the middle, that's a money matchup that would sell out at Brooklyn, would draw people in to watch Survivor Series. So I feel like the return of Brock Lesnar before SummerSlam and having Lesnar versus Lashley and then Reigns versus Lesnar at Survivor Series are two matchups that would, you know, give WWE a lot of, you know, oomph going into the return of fans to live events.
Yeah, especially with that whole dynamic with Paul Heyman between Roman and Brock, because there's no way Brock comes back without Heyman in both a personal and professional, as we've heard Brock many times say he does not like doing things on his own. Unless they're going to give him another mouthpiece. But that's very doubtful, in my opinion. And just to keep with SummerSlam, Edge, Rollins, the rumoured SummerSlam, as you mentioned, Edge possibly returning back here to have another match. But this is quite a different kind of match. I mean, I would be all for this, to be honest with you. This is the sort of thing I think Rollins needs this. You know, he's been so stale sometimes, and like, you know, he's like we always say, it's hard to find a new match because there's so much freaking television. How can you find any new stuff? But this would be something a bit like Cena and Roman again. Although we've already seen it, there's a fresh dynamic to it. I think this is another one for me that they could quite do a good job doing here. And this would be one of those matches you look at as like a dark horse for sort of match of the night if given the right time and everything else. But how likely is this to happen at the moment, SP3?
It seems very likely. It was WrestleVotes that reported that this is like on the listing or for planned matches for SummerSlam, and it's a first time ever matchup as well. And it's a match that has a little bit of, you know, story behind it, because if you remember when Seth Rollins was Money in the Bank winner and he was without the Authority following Team Cena beating Team Authority at Survivor Series 2014, basically Seth Rollins held Edge hostage and threatened to stomp him and hurt his injured neck, and Cena, that led to Cena bringing back the Authority. So I don't think WWE is going to mention that. They're going to probably make this something new, but it is something that has.
Don't bring back the Authority.
I hope not. I hope not. But just bring back the fact that Lesnar held him. I mean, that Rollins held them hostage. So I think that Edge is a great performer, whether it's on the mic, whether what we've seen him in the ring. He had arguably the best match of WrestleMania weekend with him, Daniel Bryan, and Roman Reigns. And John Alba has also reported that they are listing Edge as a babyface for his return to SmackDown. So it would, you know, be a seamless transition, you know, Edge coming back, especially in front of fans, as we saw at WrestleMania. The fans do want to cheer Edge, although he was a heel, definitely a heel going into WrestleMania with feuding with Daniel Bryan. They were very receptive of it, and they actually cheered Edge more than Daniel Bryan during that triple threat match at WrestleMania 37. So with fans coming back to live events, they're going to want to cheer Edge. He's the returning hero, the returning legend of the WWE, versus Seth Rollins, who has played a very good heel, but I agree with you. He's been very stale and has been more missed than hit ever since WrestleMania. And, you know, and that's not him in the ring, because I think he always delivers when he's in the ring. And especially over the last couple of months, he's been in the ring with Cesaro. And I don't think Rollins and Cesaro can have a bad match. As we saw at Hell in a Cell, they had a very good matchup, a very back and forth, brilliant display of chemistry. But as far as a character, you know, him on the mic, his promos are very stale. His ability to, you know, play off of other people seems very So there's something missing with Seth Rollins, and maybe that is, you know, a new opponent. And Edge would do that, and Edge definitely gives, you know, emotion, and he has a drive to him and a passion to him. And I feel like that's another thing that's been missing from Seth Rollins. So if Edge can pull that out of Seth, I think the buildup would be excellent. And I think their match at SummerSlam with time would be outstanding and would be one of Edge's best matches since his return.
Absolutely agree. And lastly, before we finish the show, some news just coming out very recently, in fact, is none other than Tony Storm coming out as bisexual. I believe this was only in the last sort of 10-12 hours, SP3, but tell us a little bit more about this then. I believe she shared something, was it on Instagram? Am I right in thinking that there was a video of some sort?
It was on WWE's NXT Instagram, which has been very good. Yeah. They've done a very great job of really promoting that it's Pride Month. You know, June is Pride Month. For those wondering why a lot of, you know, different Twitter handles or Facebook or Instagram handles have the rainbow, it's for Pride Month. And she was a part of it on the Instagram story before NXT last night. And she came out and said that, you know, she's not only an ally of the LGBT LGBTQ plus community. She's a member of it. She said she can't say that she's straight, and she said that she is actually bi, and it felt good for her to say that. So I think it's something that maybe people in the know have known for a while, but it was very great for her to just come out on a public platform and let that be known, especially for this month. And it probably, will inspire other people to kind of come out, whether, you're bisexual, you're gay, transgendered, it's a month to be proud of what you are. And I'm an ally of the LGBTQ plus community. So I was very, happy for Toni Storm to kind of get that out there. And as well, she is in a relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling star Juice Robinson. And if you didn't know that, you should know that from what she was wearing. She actually wore the signature hat of Juice Robinson with the little furry balls that had the rainbow colors. So I thought that was an excellent, a tremendous touch by Toni Storm. So yeah, I love Toni Storm. I'm a huge fan of her work. So I'm very happy that she was able to, come out and be open and be herself on such a public platform. And like I said, it's going to inspire other people who don't have that platform to feel more comfortable in their own skin.
Absolutely, totally agree with everything you just said, and good for her for doing that. And like you say, I'm sure it will. The great thing with WWE, I know we always sort of knock it sometimes for the in-ring product, but they're very good externally with these other things, and they do these kind of things excellently well. Not just that, but all the charity work that goes into it. People like to knock and bash Stephanie McMahon all the time, but I see her doing loads of great stuff that doesn't always get mentioned either, even on WWE, which is ridiculous. And the only time they were mentioning it was when she was a bloody heel on TV, which made no sense at all, because here's someone you're supposed to not like, but then hang on, I do like it. So it was a confusing time, but yeah, I'm pleased that they're capitalizing on that, thank goodness. And good for her. I'm sure it will inspire more people that maybe feel they can't, to do so. So good for her. SB3, it is that time of the show where we have to say goodbye, and we have to bring out your PA and diary to find out where we can find you this week on YouTube.
I'm going to start like Rachel Cornell said that I need a PA, and I'm going to probably contact her to be my PA for listening in the chat. She could just list where you can find me in the chat. But
it's like a little bar come down.
You can see me later today on the Wrestling Daily YouTube channel with Alex McCarthy. We go live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. BST with another edition of Wrestling Daily. We're going to be talking about NXT, and we got a very special debate as we're going to do our Mount Rushmore of authority figures, whether, WWE, WCW, whatever organization, whatever your favorite GM, commissioner, whatnot was, we're going to be talking about it on Wrestling Daily. So it's going to be a fun conversation, always fun with the Daily Boys, and you can become a member of the Wrestling Daily YouTube channel. It's only about $5 a month. You get to do the votes of the Daily Boys, as well as become a subscriber of Wrestling Daily. We're about like less than 50 subscribers away from 12K, and you can help us along on our journey for when we hit 15K. We're going to be on Quizzlemania, and they're going to do a war game style competition, us versus the Wrestle Talk guys. So support us at Wrestling Daily. Subscribe on that YouTube channel. You can also find me on the Sportskeeda Wrestling YouTube channel every single Friday following SmackDown on their post show called Smack Talk with the amazing writer Rick Ucchino. He's doing great interviews over on the Sportskeeda Wrestling YouTube channel, as well as the living legend himself, my grandpa, Dutch Mantel. So yes, straighten up those mustaches, and we're having fun. And if you haven't already, check out our last review for Smack Talk, as me and Dutch teamed up in dunking on King Corbin, as Rick Ucchino still hasn't came out with a great King Corbin match to counteract my argument that I've never seen a great King Corbin match. And Dutch Mantel says the great line that King Corbin deserves a push to the airport. So check that out. It's a great podcast, and we do a great job of covering SmackDown as well as talking the rest of the wrestling world. And if you want a wider spectrum of talking about wrestling, you of course got True Heel Heat. Like we said earlier, we got our review of the China documentary that's up right now. As I said earlier, we have our Hell in a Cell 2021 roundtable review. Yesterday we dropped Blunt Impact, which is Chris G and Ness reviewing Impact Wrestling. We got the AE recap with Marcus Cash and Jimmy Macaram reviewing All Elite Wrestling Wednesday night, Friday night, or Saturday night Dynamite. So a whole bunch of great content. And then our weekly podcast comes out every single Saturday with myself, Miss Chrissy Love, and Top Guy JJ reviewing everything going on throughout the wrestling world. So check out this week, True Hill Heat 131, as we're going to be talking about what's going on in wrestling and doing a little overalling like discussion about the greatest Hell in a Cell matches. So check that out for True Hill Heat 131 this week, and check out True Hill Heat 130 from this past week, as we had a special call-in edition where we welcomed the supporters of True Hill Heat onto the show with us. So that was a great one to check out, and we previewed Hell in a Cell. So check out all that great content, True Hill Heat, Sportskeeda Wrestling, Wrestling Daily, and of course right here on Powered 4 TV and Powered 4S P3.
There you go. All in a nutshell. He knows it. He knows the script now. Does SP3. It changes, but he knows it. And also drop a little bombshell on you here, SP3. I've got another half of the Daily Boys coming on next week. Yes, Mr. Alex McCarthy. I'm going to be interviewing him next week, so I will have him on. Like people like who was the guy that tried to put in the wedge between us? Was it Mark Lloyd?
Mark
Who was
Lloyd,
like, who's the best co-host? You know, this sort of playground stuff. So I'm having him on. It'll be a great sit-down chat to speak with Alex next week. That'll be available. For the rest of the week, we had Big Fight Weekly. Go and check that out if you haven't. If you're into MMA and boxing and even Flash Gordon and all the rest of it, you can check that out. You will enjoy it, I'm sure, with Stu Palmer and Chris. It was a fantastic show. And yeah, like I say, don't forget Powered4.tv. Best time to get it is right now, because events are going to be coming in thick and fast in the next couple of weeks. Really can't wait. The fact that wrestling is taking place. And we're going to have some really even bigger news. I can't tell if it's going to be next week or the week after to tell everyone as well. But also another new sponsor as well coming onto us. Anybody who's into old classic arcades, they're going to like this one a lot. So, yeah, thank you very much, SP3, for all your time. I will let you get back to your daily life before the next Wrestling Daily this evening, which I'm sure will be a great show. I hope, SP3, that on the War Games version of Quizomania, you guys have some better luck. You know, those questions, you know, the nipple part, everything like that, it was ridiculous.
No nipples.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Give me trivia.
And we need trivia. Yeah, that's SP3. He's the oracle of wrestling for a reason, but we need the questions, right? No, thank you very much, SP3, and hope you have a good week. And we'll both see you back together this time next week at 4 o'clock, of course. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.